Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on the Yana Positive channel. This is your girl Yana Positive, and we are still in the birthday mood, the birthday vibe, and the birthday month. So, of course, we're still in celebration mode. So, we're going to take a tour through none other than the capital city of America, Washington, D.C. Come along with me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share with those who need this space for positivity, upliftment, and also, to get a slice in my life. This is your girl, Yana Positive. Come along.
America's economy is horrible at this time. People are losing massive faith in American democracy. The idea of representative democracy, maybe not such a good idea from most standpoints of Americans. This is also the highest introduction of Americans into the American Communist Association. What's the biggest enemy of the 19th century? Communism. So a lot of people are starting to read books by people like Karl Marx and things of that nature. So this whole school of thought is new to Americans, and they have no idea what the president does, right? So we're all setting ourselves up for failure. But wait, there's FDR. FDR was a lawyer, former governor of New York, young guy from New York, educated, came from a wealthy family, right? He has this idea that he's going to get America back on board the America train. And as a matter of fact, that's exactly what he does. How does he do it though? He does it through executive orders, which are socialists in theory, literally. And that's how he gets America's back on board, through the New Deal. Let's go. What happens with the New Deal? You have government programs that are essentially created to better the economy, get people working, and you will literally control the interest of, you will literally control how much money an industry can make, because the government is literally controlling every aspect of it. So, early days of building dams in America, that's the New Deal. So you have the Hoover Dam, you have all different types of dams all through the country. You have the creation of the Tennessee Valley Authority. All these things are very important to this presidency. This is also when they start to provide electricity to rural areas in the country. Like the countryside. Like this is a city, right? We have electricity, right? Mention this. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, at a very, young adult age, caught polio. And this rendered his lower spine almost inoperable. He couldn't really walk. Have you ever seen the movie Forrest Gump in the beginning where Forrest has those braces on?
Yeah.
He had the same thing. But he was a grown man, he wasn't a child. So for a grown person, polio was a little bit different from children, where it killed children. For adults, it made you immobile or paralyzed. So for much of his later adult life, he was bound to a wheelchair. So and I want you to put yourself in his shoes. You go your whole life, no health issues. Early 20s, when you're invincible, right? If you're in the early 20s, you're invincible in the early 20s. You're fine. Mid-20s, you get sick. And now you can't walk. There is a level of ego that's involved that's like, I don't want anybody to know I can't walk. You know what I'm saying? Think about all your friends. You're like, man, these people knew me when I was running and jumping and all that. You don't want them to know. So how do you think he feels about the American people? Because now he's elected president and he's handicapped. He can't walk. He doesn't want anybody to know. So every time that the public saw him, they saw him either sitting already or standing already. Because he could hold himself up. He could wear his leg braces and stand behind the podium. But him without leg braces, it wouldn't happen. As a matter of fact, they introduced the pool to the White House because of him. That's the swimming pool in the White House. I'm sure you might have heard stories of it. It's still there. They just don't use it. It's now the White House press area. Whenever you see the White House press secretary, the press secretary is at a stage where the media sits is a pool. It's floorboards. They're sitting over a pool. They just, they just don't use it. So John F. Kennedy was the last president to use it. All right, but he was physically disabled. So because of that, you have disability. The American Disability Act. You have that comes about that really makes it feasible for people with physical disabilities to have a normal life in America. Like if you go to McDonald's, if you're blind, how do you order? Right? Like you're not just gonna read the wall. It says, hey, I want the thing on sale, right? There's Braille menus. And that's a law that was created by the federal government when the person that was in power was literally physically disabled. You understand? So a lot of progress came about during America because he was also physically disabled. He was just ashamed of it, and that was an ego thing because he grew up his whole life without being in a wheelchair, right? All right, so that's it. We're gonna go to the next term, and then the last area is his fourth term. He died in the first few months. It's just a waterfall. So we're just gonna go to this next section. We're gonna walk towards the Martin Luther King Memorial, okay? Yeah. All right, let's go. It symbolically represents years and years of racial injustice, slavery and intolerance and war, all these things that influences the life of people of minority backgrounds, especially African Americans, right? And Dr. King is literally made out of the fabric that this mountain of despair is made out of. There were all three stones. It was all one stone, and this statue of him comes about. To understand what that is, we have to go back. Jefferson introduced the idea of manifest destiny in this country as the third president of the United States. He wrote the Declaration of Independence at 32 years old in 1776, and it only pertained to white male landowners. The last month that he was president of the United States was the same month that Abraham Lincoln was born. When we were there earlier, I talked about Lincoln and his presidency and how his presidency would be weighed whether or not he'd be the last president of the United States. But his presidency was not to secure or end slavery for anyone. And that is important to know. But after he was killed, you had a 12-year period that they called the Reconstruction. During the Civil War, you had the African Americans enter the Civil War and the United States Colored Troop. You had the Union Army. Being as powerful as they were, they facilitated the Reconstruction by literally occupying the southern states after the war. Every battle in the Civil War was fought in the southern states. And only one 3-day battle in Pennsylvania, they called it Gettysburg, was fought in the north. Every other battle in the Civil War was fought in the south. The south was destroyed because of it. Because of that, the southern area was occupied by the Union Army for 12 and a half years. During that time, you had the passing of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. What are the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment? 13th Amendment, end slavery up until someone commits a crime. 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, so you become a citizen. 15th Amendment, the right to vote for African American men. Women still didn't get the right to vote. But understand, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment passed after Lincoln's presidency into this period of the Reconstruction, when Union Army is in the South. It all stopped when Rutherford B. Hayes is elected. Because why? Rutherford B. Hayes was a Republican. He ran for office. He lost, actually, but the Democrats in the South said, we'll give you the presidency, we'll give you the electoral college vote you need, if and only if you make the Union Army leave the South. That debate, actually, that negotiation took place in the place where the American Bar Association is. Somebody's hotel is here. Yours, right? That place, look on that place, there's a plaque that says James Wormley's Hotel. That was the hotel where Rutherford B. Hayes' presidency was negotiated. And that's where the Reconstruction ended. The Union Army was literally facilitating the security of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments during this time. So up until 1877, African American men in southern states where slavery used to go on could vote. they voted for congressmen and senators that looked like them. This was a 12-year period where we had black congressmen and black senators, first in America, right? The crazy thing about that is when Rutherford B. Hayes makes the Army leave the South, Jim Crow of the South and black code laws are introduced. The 13th Amendment states that if you are a slave, you are free until you commit a crime. So if the legislation could dictate what a crime is, then you can also dictate who is being locked up, correct? This is when you have laws like the black code laws and the Jim Crow laws of the South. These laws basically made it illegal to be black. You would be literally locked up for 20, 30 years for jaywalking or looking a police officer in the eye. Like, what? Sounds crazy, but these were laws that were established in southern municipalities. This happened for generations. So from the time that Lincoln is president up until 1965, 1964 is when these things are happening. So during the presidency of FDR, when he's trying to get military people or people to join the military after Pearl Harbor, why doesn't it work? Because there's not enough people to join the military. So he opens recruitment through prison systems. And what prisoners are you inviting to join the military, sir? The ones that committed non-violent crimes. So these are the people that do the black code laws. These are the people that do Jim Crow of the South, amongst other people as well. But you have one of the largest introduction of African Americans into the military. Those people also went into the military. They fought in World War II, and it's like, fight this war. If you survive, you'll be free. You never have a record, and you get the GI Bill. You can send your kids to college. So guess what? These people that go to World War II, fight World War II, send their kids to college, guess what their kids do? They fight the Civil Rights Movement. These are literally the children of the age group that comes up and literally changes the world. 1963, there's a March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Dr. King is the keynote speaker at the event. That's when he gave his I Have a Dream speech, and it changes the minds and hearts of the world. And at that very moment, a few months later, Dr. King is invited to be at the signing of the law that becomes, or the bill that becomes law, the Civil Rights Bill, right? A year after that, 1965, he gives a speech on the steps of the Senate, and he gives a speech about African Americans voting. Even though they had the right to vote, they were never allowed to vote because of Southern things that happened in Southern legislatures. Literature tests, gumball tests. Hey, guess how many gumballs are in this jar? If you guess it, you can vote. That was a normal thing. That is what the Voting Rights Act would stop. The Voting Rights Act was passed after a speech that was given on the steps of the Senate by Dr. King in 1965. This man, not one but two pieces of legislation, had major influence in having it passed. And then he was killed in 1968. Guess how old he was? 39. 39. History, if we look at these people memorialized over here, all presidents, by the way, Jefferson, FDR, Lincoln, would history recognize them if they died at 39? Probably Jefferson, because he wrote the Declaration of Independence at 32. But other than that, no, they wouldn't. FDR probably locally, because he was governor of the state of New York, but nationally, no. Abraham Lincoln, yes, he was a congressman for a few years, but no. So we have a person who's memorialized here that's a private citizen, never elected, never official appointed position or anything like that, but changes the world and is killed at 39 years old. So we could say he did a lot, but his life was still incomplete. Look at his feet. Where are they? They're not there because the artist wanted to show you that the job was incomplete. An incomplete sculpture for an incomplete life. Imagine what his life would have been had he lived beyond 39 years old. You know what I'm saying? But he did so much change in 39 years, never elected an official position, but changed the world, right? In 39 years, really in like 10, 12 years, because he gets his He gets his divinity doctorate at 24. He's the head of a church. So really, he's only in the national spotlight for less than 10 years. So in less than 10 years, he changes the world. But we're in the year 2022. And you all know, as much as we go forward, we go backwards. Do you know that every 3 years still the Voting Rights Act of 1965 has to be reconfirmed? So people that look like me, African Americans, have to get the right to vote through confirmation through Senate and Congress every 3 years? This is 2022. Where are we? It's like Bizarro World, right? Because understandably, it's like, yeah, they definitely should have the right to vote. But why isn't it a thing? Why is it a thing that they have to keep reconfirming? So ideologically, like, you know, in theory, right, through ideals, Dr. King is still separated from the Jefferson Memorial with a body of water. Figuratively speaking, we're still not there yet where everyone experienced the same idea of we hold these truths and be self-evident that all men are created equal, and by men I mean women too. Even the language itself is chauvinistic in a way, right? But we have to understand that that was a different time period, and we do, but we still got to hold them accountable for their mistakes. And there's still a bridge to be made, figuratively and literally, because we literally have to get to a place where everyone has the same access, has the same experience as Americans. And if you're not from America, this is what we deal with on a daily basis. And this fight, push and pull relationship in this country where most of the people get it, but the people in power do not. And that's important. All right?
That is all for today. Thank you for joining me, amors. See you next time. Same place, Thursday at 8 here on the Anna Positive channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for, man? Come on. Click that subscribe button and hit that bell for the notifications so you can know when we upload the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for joining. See you all next time, Thursday at 8. Catch you later.